Michael,
Okay.
you're on.
Thank you both. Actually, I might be off right now. We'll see. I don't know what's going to happen. We'll see if this message is enough. It's probably not enough. That's okay. Oh, great. We're getting off to a good start, though. You're a laughing crowd. That's it. I'm glad you're laughing now because I'm not proud of the story that I'm about to tell you. I've just always been invited into leadership. There's always been aspects since I was a kid. When there are opportunities to lead, I tend to step into those, or I got invited into those things. And when I worked for Safeway for a number of years. And when I was 19, I became a second assistant manager. That's right, not the assistant manager, but the second assistant manager. And I took the job really seriously. And, that was my first exposure into okay, I've got to manage lots of people and I'm responsible for a lot of other things as well. When I moved from Northern California to Central Oregon, one of my responsibilities was being the assistant manager of the Madras Safeway. And I was 23 years old then, and I was still learning what it was like to manage people. I wasn't always the best, but I did take it very seriously. So I worked constantly. In fact, I was just around the clock working all the time, 6-7 days a week, always present at the store. Anytime my district manager came to visit and would give me feedback, I want to make sure that I was improving on all of those things and get everybody in the right place, make sure everybody's doing the right thing. And I was maybe a little overbearing at times, perhaps. There was this one girl who worked in the store at that time. She was a courtesy clerk, and a courtesy clerk is somebody who bags groceries and collects carts and all that kind of stuff. And I thought she was lazy. So I had my eye on her, and I was watching out for what she was doing and how well she was working, and was she doing it hard enough? Was she actually doing the things that she needed to do? And when somebody's watching you and judging your behavior and keeping an eye out for your motivations and all that kind of stuff, that's not a very comfortable place. So I can understand why she was perhaps uncomfortable. But one day, she kind of disappeared for a little while, and I noticed, of course, but I eventually saw her collecting carts outside, and so I went right out to the parking lot to confront her. "Where have you been?" And she's like, "I was on a break." And I'm feeling this way right now, no way. "You were not on a break." And she took off her apron and she said, "I quit." And right there, she just walked out of the parking lot, and I never saw her again. I'm glad you liked that story. Welcome to Management Lessons 101 with your instructor, Michael Stern. You'll learn all sorts of lessons here. When grace is scarce in our lives, we look to control things. And sometimes what we look to control is people's behavior. We might try to judge their behavior or even judge their motivations. What is it that's driving them in some way? And all the while, we're ignoring our own great need for grace that we have all the time. Sometimes we think that we need to make the right outcomes happen in somebody else's life. And it's going to be our involvement and our management of their behavior that's actually going to bring about the thing that we want. But when we give up control, so often we give up control, that ends up looking like grace for other people, much like the grace that God offers to us all the time. We live in very often in this mindset of there's just not enough of anything. There's not enough time. There's not enough money. There's not enough stuff. There's not enough love for me. There's not enough of anything. And when we get stuck in this trap of feeling like there's a scarcity mindset that we're living in, we might have regrets about the past and decisions that we've made and where we thought life could have been different. Or maybe we're discontent with where we're at right now in the present. And more than likely, we're anxious about the future because we're pretty sure there's not going to be enough for anything in the future. What if that scarcity mindset was actually a crisis of faith and not so much about not having enough? But will we trust that God is the provider and will actually provide the things that we need? Will we trust him, and in the process of trusting him, will we allow him to lead us on a pathway away from fear and anxiety and into freedom and abundance, because that's what he offers? This is the last week in our series that we're calling Enough. And throughout these weeks, we've been journeying with the Israelites as they've been rescued from slavery in Egypt and they're wandering through the wilderness. And in the process of wandering through the wilderness, God is confronting them with their poverty mindset that they have from being in slavery. Are they going to maintain that mindset the whole time? Or are they going to learn to trust God and to follow him into the promised land of milk and honey, the place of abundance? Are they going to embrace God as the source of everything that they need? Now, God's grace is far greater than we understand. I am convinced of that his grace is so much greater than what we actually understand. But when we understand it in terms of its scarcity, as in it's not even enough for us, we're going to offer it in a pretty scarce way to other people as well. And instead of offering grace, we might look to control every outcome that we can in people's lives around us or even within our own life. God rescued the Israelites from slavery. They had been slaves in Egypt for more than 400 years, and he did it through a man named Moses. And Moses, God did incredible things through Moses. And he brings the Israelites out of slavery, and then they have to wander through the wilderness in order to get to this place called Mount Sinai. And God had met Moses there before and said, you're going to rescue my people, and you're going to bring them back to this place in order to meet me. So the Israelites are on a journey to go meet with God. That is an incredible thing. And it's been a hard journey so far, but finally, they're pretty close. In the part of the story that we're looking at today, they're pretty close to Mount Sinai. And as they're approaching, this is what happens. It says, the next day Moses took his seat to hear the people's disputes against each other. They waited before him from morning till evening. Moses is there, taking a seat, judging the disputes of all the people around him. Now, earlier in the story, it had said that there were 600,000 men, plus women and children, who came out of Egypt on this journey. That's a lot of people. Moses is just one person, and all of the decisions have to go through him. It says, when disputes arise, they come to me. This is Moses talking, and I'm the one who settles the case between the quarreling parties. I inform the people of God's decrees and give them his instructions. Now, this community likes to quarrel. In fact, they've been quarreling and complaining since the moment they came out of Egypt. Every single chapter of the story since, they have had some complaint. I can't imagine the stories that Moses has heard during this time. And after a really long day of questioning everybody, I'm sure he's probably feeling like Judge Judy here. You guys are a bunch of fools. I can't even settle the disputes between my 4 kids in my house, let alone 600,000 plus people. The people here, they're not being incredibly gracious. They have been complaining every step of the way. And now they're grumbling and complaining against each other. And Moses, he's not doing something wrong, but he's leading from the law. And in fact, that's kind of how he's characterized in the whole story. He's someone who's going to lead from the law. He's going to tell everybody what they need in their own specific situation. But that's not actually how God really intended things to be. In fact, when he called the Israelites to Mount Sinai to meet with him, he never had to even give them the law if they would just turn their hearts toward him. But when they couldn't, that's when the law came. So Moses, he's telling everything, and he's teaching everyone, rather than how to live, he's telling them what they need to do in their specific situations. Now, Jesus is the one who actually has all of the authority to judge in this world. And he's the one who actually has the capacity to be able to do it as well. But you know what? Jesus doesn't actually tell us everything that we need to do every day in our lives. He approaches things a little bit differently. At one point, Jesus is in northern Israel. He's wandering around. He's healing people. He's casting out demons. He's teaching as he typically does. But he's chosen his 12 disciples, these 12 guys who are going to be his apprentices. And he begins training them, and he gives them opportunities. In fact, there's one point where he sends them out to go do the things that he is doing. And the way that he does that can be helpful for us to see. The first thing that he does is he teaches them. It says, Jesus sent out the 12 apostles with these instructions. I'm going to teach you. Let me give you some instructions. Go and announce to them that the kingdom of heaven is near. Jesus gave his disciples a lot of instructions in this particular part. Here are the things that you could do to prepare for the situations that you don't know are coming. They might be difficult, and you're going to need to trust God in the process. So he taught them, but then he also gave them authority. It says Jesus called his 12 disciples together and gave them authority to cast out evil spirits and to heal every kind of disease and illness. And he's giving them, as he's given them the authority, he's also showing them how to do it. Right before this, it says Jesus traveled through all the towns and villages of that area, teaching in the synagogues and announcing the good news about the kingdom. And he healed every kind of disease and illness. So Jesus, as he's sending out his disciples, he teaches them, he gives them authority, he shows them, he demonstrates for them what it's like, how they should conduct themselves. And Jesus, he was always moving people toward a heart posture toward God. He wasn't trying to manage anybody's behavior. He was just trying to get their hearts geared toward God. Moses and Israel, during this part of the story, they are about to enter into a covenant with God, a committed relationship with each other. And it's going to be based on the law, on the instruction that God is going to give to them. And it's going to be the most formative aspect of what defines their relationship with God. Now, Jesus, many centuries later, someone is going to write about him and say that he actually provides a better covenant. One that's better than one that is based on the law. Now, the Bible, there's some mystery in it. Like, for example, one of the mysteries is that there's this writing in the New Testament. We typically call it the book of Hebrews. We don't know who wrote it. I mean, there are different theories about who wrote it, but even though we don't know who wrote it, from the very earliest times in the church, it has been considered inspired words from God. And therefore, carrying the authority that any of God's words would carry for us. And we may not know who wrote it, but whoever that person was, they wrote it really well. And the point that they're trying to make is that Jesus is better. Jesus is better than the prophets. Jesus is better than Moses. Jesus is better than the angels. Jesus is a better priest than any of the priests that ever existed before. And like I already said, Jesus provides a better covenant as well. Here's one of the things that this mystery writer of Hebrews says. This high priest of ours understands our weaknesses, for he faced all the same testings we do, yet did not sin. At the time of Moses, when he's over all of the people and he's sitting there and he's judging them, There was no established priesthood yet, but that was coming. In fact, that was going to be the very next thing that happens when they reach Mount Sinai, is that the priesthood begins to be codified within the law. What does it look like to have a priest? And what that really looks like is that the priests had this job in their representation between God and the people of offering sacrifices for the weaknesses and for the sins of the people. It was really just kind of a Band-Aid thing, though, because here's the problem, is that the priests themselves were also pretty sinful. And so they had to offer sacrifices for themselves, and they had to offer sacrifices for the people, and they had to do it again and again and again and again. Here in this passage, it says that Jesus is the high priest. He's the one who's had all of the same human experiences that we have. He's experienced all the same weaknesses. He's faced all the same temptations and the same testings, but he's done it without sin. Nobody else can claim that. I can't claim that. You can't claim that. Anybody want to claim it? Raise your hand. I dare you. Come on. Jesus understands our weaknesses, even though he didn't succumb to them himself. He experienced them. And it's within that experience that he's had that he's able to actually reveal for us what our weaknesses are, which is a good thing because revealed weakness leads to help. Moses has a father-in-law, Jethro. And Jethro, he's heard all about what God has done for the Israelites and through Moses, all of the miracles and how he rescued all of them from slavery. And so he wants to come out and see what's happening. He wants to see Moses. And so he comes during this time when Moses is sitting there all day and all night, judging all of the people and making calls about all of the disputes that they have. Jethro sees this and he's like, this is not right, man. You cannot do this. And so he takes the opportunity to actually reveal a weakness to Moses. He says, this is not good. You're going to wear yourself out. And the people too. This job is too heavy a burden for you to handle all by yourself. Now notice how Jethro helps to reveal the weakness that's there for Moses. He doesn't say, you're not good. He says, this is not good. This scenario is not good. And it's not good because he actually shows concern. He says, it's not going to be good for you and it's not going to be good for the people. Everybody is going to be worn out by this. And he finds a kind way to say, Moses, you're really just not fit for this, honestly. He says, this job is too heavy for you. It's too much. He didn't pull a Judge Judy. He's not always the nicest person, right? He's compassionately revealing a weakness. And that's really good because what that is going to end up doing is leading toward help. It's going to be help for Moses and it's going to be help for all of the people as well. He's revealing a blind spot that Moses has. And in that confrontation and in that encouragement, what that correction ends up being is actually grace. It's a corrective grace for Moses. And it's going to be for all the people an encouragement toward obedience toward God and blessings from God. And thankfully, Moses, he's humble enough to accept it. He hears what Jethro says. Jesus, he understands our weaknesses, but he doesn't just understand them, he overcame them. And because he has overcome them, he wants to reveal them within ourselves. And when those things are revealed, he just wants them addressed so that they can be restored, so that we can find the help that we actually need in our time of need. And what ends up happening is that those weaknesses, as they're revealed in us, they're met with grace. And when they're met with grace, it's not threatening. It's not meant to harm us or to hurt us. It's meant to help us. And the more that we trust in what God is revealing within ourselves, the more help that we're going to end up receiving. Got a question for you. Are you more known for judgment or grace? The people closest to you, would they say you're more known for judgment or for grace? The writer of Hebrews says, "So then, since we have a great high priest who has entered heaven, Jesus, the Son of God, let us hold firmly to what we believe." Jesus, he addresses our weaknesses not only because he has experienced them, that was necessary, but he addresses them and approaches them with grace because he's the Son of God. We believe that when we say Jesus is the Son of God, that he is God. He is divine. He was fully man and experienced all of our weaknesses, and yet he's also something far greater, which is really important because all of the other priests, they weren't something greater. And so what they had to do, they had to keep doing. But not in this case. What Jesus does is for everybody, all humanity across all time, because he's greater than all of humanity. And it says here that he entered heaven, which is really just intimating that he died. He died and he was resurrected. He died and he rose again. And it was in that process of sacrificing himself as something far greater than anything human that he could actually meet us in all of our weaknesses and offer us grace. It was dying on the cross that actually addressed our weaknesses and all of the sins that we have, all the things that we've done that have been against God. And it's through that act that we experience grace. When the writer says, hold firmly to the things that you believe, these are the things that we believe that we have to hold firmly to. That we've experienced God's grace because of Jesus, and that we have access to that grace in abundance. But not just that we've received it and that we have access to it in abundance, but that then we give it to other people. Because there's no shortage of it. There is enough. There's more than enough. We don't have to withhold it from anybody else. Jesus, when he's sending out his 12 apostles, he actually, in all the instruction that he gives them during that time, he says this, give as freely as you have received. God has given us incredible grace. He offers you incredible amounts of grace through Jesus. And now we're expected to take that same grace and to show it to other people. No longer trying to control all of their behaviors or question their motivations, because grace allows us to release control. Jethro, he comes, he reveals this weakness for Moses. And he tells him, this is what you should do. You gotta spread this out a little bit. You should have many other leaders who are doing this. And you should still lead from the top, but everybody else should be sharing in this. And that's gonna help everybody. Appoint other leaders to this task. He says this, now listen to me and let me give you a word of advice, and may God be with you. You should continue to be the people's representative before God, bringing their disputes to him. Teach them God's decrees and give them his instructions. Show them how to conduct their lives. When we don't recognize the grace that we have in our lives that we've received from God, we tend to want to control things. We want to do like what I did with that employee at Safeway those years ago. Manage the behavior, question the motivations. I had no grace in me to give. I hadn't received the grace of God by that point, at least not in any way that I understood. I had nothing to give to her except trying to control her in some way. Jethro, he's talking to Moses now like, you've got to release control. You can't be God for everybody. You need to trust that God's actually going to work through other people to accomplish the things that he wants to do. You can't just tell everybody what to do. Instead, you need to teach them, you need to give them, and you need to show them. He says you need to teach them the decrees, like teach them what it's about. How do you follow God? But then give the instruction to others so that they can pass it along. And then show them how it is that you live this life with God. Grace moves us from just telling people to teaching and giving and showing, which is a lot like what Jesus did with his apostles, with his disciples. He taught them, he gave them instruction, then he gave them authority, and then he showed them how to do it. I have another question for you. How can you give the grace that God has given you? Is there someone in your life who really needs the grace of God? Who needs to experience it and can experience it from you? Is there somebody in your life that you're withholding grace from? And you know that you need to go not leading with the law, but leading with grace. Moses, he's basically like, picture him sitting on a throne before all of those people coming to him. He's seated. They're coming for judgments about their own situations. But it's a throne that he can't really handle. And as a result of him not being able to handle it, he's suffering as a result of it, and the people around him are suffering as well. But if he listens to what Jethro has to say, there's a better outcome that can be there. Jethro says, if you follow this advice, and if God commands you to do so, then you will be able to endure the pressures, and all these people will go home in peace. As grace increases, peace increases. This is the last thing that our mystery writer from Hebrews that we'll look at today. He says, so let us come boldly to the throne of our gracious God. There we will receive his mercy and we will find grace to help us when we need it most. Jesus has gone through everything on our behalf, suffering and death. The whole experience of being human, he understands all of that. And because he has gone through all of that, and because he has overcome all of our weaknesses, we then get to enter into, it says boldly, basically confidently. You can confidently approach God. You can approach his throne. And what you'll find there is not judgment at that throne, but you'll find grace and you'll find mercy. And you'll find it in abundance. If that throne were a throne of judgment, we would approach it with anxiety. We would approach it with fear and trembling. But when we get to approach it and receive grace and mercy, what ends up happening is that we experience peace. We don't have to feel the anxiety before God. One last question for you. In what area of your life do you need to receive the grace of God? In what area of your life are you like, I don't want to approach the throne with that? Because if you do actually approach it and let that thing be revealed, it'll be met with mercy and grace, not with judgment. And the result of that is going to be help for you. Well, 23 years old, managing a Safeway store, and I wasn't great at it. I had my failures. And you know what? That's the same today. I still fail. I still actually look to control a lot of things. In fact, you can ask anybody who's on staff here. Mike is actively in a process of trying to release control of things and give to other people. And I fail in that process. I don't always do it well. It's one of the weaknesses that I have. And sometimes that weakness can get out of hand. But I know Jesus understands that weakness. And I know that he has actually already overcome it. And the more that I reveal it to him, the more I'm going to receive the help. And every time I'm in the worst state of it, I can still go to the throne of God and receive an abundance of grace and mercy from him. And the more that I experience that grace and mercy from him, the more freely I'm going to be able to give it to other people. Let's pray. Father, you're so good to us. Thank you so much for being so gracious and so merciful. Thank you that you allow us to approach you. In fact, you don't just allow it, but you desire it. I pray, God, that you would help us all to always turn to you, even in our worst moments, to turn to you and not away from you. Help us to look to you, to confidently approach you, and to receive the grace and the mercy that you have for us. And then I pray, God, that you would make us such gracious people. May the grace that you have poured out on us, may it just flow out from us toward everyone around us as well. And may that be a reflection of who you are. Thank you, Jesus, for your sacrifice. Thank you that you experienced everything that we do, and yet you made a way for us, that we could approach the throne of God. Help us to follow you well. We love you and we trust you. Amen.